Welcome back to From the Burbs to the Tetons. Sorry about my voice if it's a little scratchy here and there. I'm getting over a cold. But let's go ahead and dive into this video. One of the main projects I wanted to tackle when I was out there in the fall was getting the electrical in the ground. Part of this project also meant getting conduit in that ditch for the internet access. And we'll talk about that some more at the end of the video. Part of the prep work had already been done for the electrical install. When the culvert was installed, I also put in conduit from the telephone pole on to my property. Electrical Central is going to be located on the front left corner of the workshop apartment. This is basically where everything electrical is going to originate from. From there, we'll feed the workshop apartment with two different electrical systems, one for the workshop and one for the apartment upstairs. It will also feed the garden shed, which will in turn also feed the 4 greenhouses. And then way out in the future, we're going to have to supply the main house and the 2 in-ground greenhouses with electricity as well. And then on top of that, we're going to have to allow for conduit to get the electricity back from the solar panels to the individual houses, the main house and the workshop apartment. So the first ditch that we need to dig is the one from the conduit that's already in the ground from the telephone pole out to where the transformer is going to go. And then the next conduit I need in place is the one that's going to come from electrical center, at the left side of the house to the garden shed. And finally, I want to get some conduit in the ground so that the electrical company can then daisy chain from the transformer past all of my pipes going into my houses to the other 10 acres. The last thing I want them to do is be digging up around all of this electrical and water and propane by hand so that they can get electrical in there. In the architectural plans video I did a while ago, I do a deep dive into the design of all the underground stuff going on. I've put a link above here if you want to go check that out. So let's move on to some video. Whenever I'm behind schedule, the first thing to kind of suffer is how much videotape I take. There are going to be gaps in the progress that we were making, and there are also going to be some overlaps as I didn't have time to go back and look at each video and figure out what parts I was going to use and not use. But I hope you enjoy what I do have, and I'll see you on the flip side. Hi guys, so I thought I'd walk the property and give you an update on where everything's kind of sitting at the moment. So we have electrical cable in. Supposedly there should be plenty laying over there in the grass to go up the pole. And probably next week they'll come and install all that, but I just wanted it in the trench. So we got the extra culverts in. So now we'll be able to take a nice wide, probably about right here, and I'll probably have a couple extra feet on this side and 3 feet on the other side that I'll have to fill in with rocks, which will be nice because I think it'll be better with the rocks and everything. We were talking about doing 4 feet, taking one of these, cutting it in half, putting this end on this end and the other one on the other end, and I just assumed what would happen is we'd come up right to the edge with the dirt like we did last time, throw a few rocks on it and hope for the best. It just wasn't that much more expensive to get 2 of them. Literally, I spent $180 on the extra one. All the labor was the same, the delivery was the same, everything else was the same. It was worth spending the $180 in doing this and regretting it down the road. Then we only had 4 inches. They made 6 inches, 6 foot ones. I'm sorry, not 4 inches, 4 feet, 4 foot one. If they made 6 foot ones, I probably would have bought the 6 foot ones and been happy with that. But the 4 feet would just cutting it close.
And look at that, there's water in the canal, so the culvert is doing its job. Pretty. The electrical is underneath. And then I don't even know if you can see, I'm getting all this, I'll have to look at it. Oops, well, there's water in there that kind of melted, or it seeped in, but still it's fine, it'll get filled in. But there's an electrical cable down there coming through here. I'll start working on burying it, maybe even today, up against the wall. And then here I measured, let me come back, sorry, I'm paying attention so it'll fall in. So this would be, if we put in 4 greenhouses, this is going to be the edge of the first greenhouse. It's about 25 feet away from the drainage ditch over there. There's only a 15-foot easement on either side. Actually, my property starts right on the, like 6 inches past the, what the heck is it called? It's not called a ditch. I'll probably overvoice this anyways and cut it. But there's basically 15 yards on each side. Well, on the other side really isn't my property. There's 6 inches of my property. On this side is my property. So we got 15 inches plus 10. So we're fine. I'm sorry, 15 feet plus 10 feet. And then what I've done is 16 feet plus 10 feet in between. So there's plenty of chance for the light to come in to each greenhouse, and each greenhouse can get plenty of light. Plus there's plenty of room to put a tractor in between. Plus there's plenty of room for the snow to land and then run a snow blower through there. Now I'm only going to do 1 greenhouse to start with to see how it goes. Because I don't know, maybe this community just isn't interested in fresh veggies. We'll see. And if that goes well, I have a plan to do 2 other greenhouses, but each one of those is going to be about 3 times more expensive than these, because I'm going to make sure it's a 4-season, and the fact that even in the middle of winter we can do summer type stuff in it, including fruit and tomatoes and things like that in the mid-dead of winter, because we're gonna have to put winter crops in here for them to survive. It's not going to be warm enough without putting in a ton of money into it. So I digress. So here's where the first test greenhouse is going to be. We have plans to go ahead and do underground heating system now. Hopefully we'll be digging that tomorrow or the next day. Oh, well, tomorrow's Friday, so we'll either do it Friday or Monday.
Over the next couple of days, things moved pretty quickly. So what I did was a series of milestone videos. So let's get into this one. You can see there's plenty of cable at the end for the electrical company to hook up the transformer that they're going to put in the next couple of days. You can see as I walk down the ditch that we've got some conduit on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it looks like fresh dirt. On the right-hand side, I went ahead and used a hoe to pull in some of that dirt on the right-hand side to cover it up about 3 to 4 inches. The whole reason you want to do that is then when the backhoe comes through to cover it up, it's not dropping big heavy rocks right on it. But imagine dropping a 4-pound rock from 3 feet onto the cable repeatedly. It's going to damage it. One of the new things I learned from the electrical company and the electrical inspector that I just didn't think about when thinking about using, electricity and cables and stuff is heat. Electrical cables get very, very warm, and one of their biggest concerns is them overheating, everything melting down and catching on fire. With this, the electrical company wants 18 inches of dirt around their buried cable for heat dispersion. So I purposely have the cable pushed up against the right-hand side and then the conduit all the way on the left-hand side. So here at the end, you can see all the dirt's been pushed into the ditch. I needed help with this because it was really deep, and my neighbor was nice enough to come over with his little lawn tractor with a little plow on the front of it and push in about 30 feet of dirt. I really wanted to get that kind of level and up to, all of it being about 4 feet deep. And you'll see in another video where we're putting in flexible conduit for the internet access. So here's the next day's update video. So we've got the ditch dug going out to the access road and conduit in place where we can go ahead and put electrical cable in for the other 10 acres. We'll also put a conduit in there for internet access, and the more I think about it, eventually when we get the well in, we'll probably make allowances for getting water over to the other 10 acres too. The couple $100 I'm paying for, the backhoe work and the conduit now is going to save me thousands of dollars later in needing to hand dig around buried cables, 5, 6, 10 years down the road. The 2 sticks, we're going to bury those. That's where the water line goes underneath the conduit there. This will make it easy for the excavator to just come up and dig straight down on either side, and then as the dirt over top of the conduit crumbles, we'll just push that out of the way, and we'll only have to hand dig a couple of feet. And actually, we won't be really hand digging it, we'll just be kind of like pushing it out of the way until we find the electrical. The reason why we need to do that is that the water needs to be at a 5-foot level. This conduit's at a 4-foot level, so it's going to go underneath. The only other cable that's going to go over top of it, which will probably be about 10 feet away from where this water cable is going to be the propane coming from the buried tank that's going to be on the right-hand side of the ditch. And then if you look at that stake with the blue on top of it, that's about where the water well is going to go. I might back it up 5 feet or move it, away from the electrical by 5 feet, but that's the general area where the well is going to get dug. So here we've pushed in the rest of the soft dirt, or most of the rest of the soft dirt, to try and bring up the level to about 12 inches above where the electrical is buried. This is where we'll put the conduit for the internet access. And I keep calling it internet access because I still don't know if we're going to be doing fiber in there or copper. So here's the ditch going out to the garden shed, and we're just waiting for the 45 angle to do that little corner piece. Then we'll glue it all together and probably just kind of try and bend it around the corner. And now down here, we already filled in the electrical. The only other thing going in here is going to be the flexible cable for the internet access. At this point, we're just waiting for the internet provider to give us a call to come pick up a spool that has the flexible conduit on it for us to go ahead and lay it in the trench. They basically have one that they lend out to customers or contractors to use and then return. So if somebody has it in the morning, we're hoping to get it right after lunch.
Another quick shot. So there's lots of orange cable now, conduit. Lots of orange conduit coming through. What I've done is the ends here are marked. Some of them have little rings around them. So this one has 2 rings. This one doesn't have any. The one below it has 1. The other ends are marked or unmarked the same, so that we can tell which one goes to what. These are the stub outs for going to the other property, and so we still have some work to do here because we don't have the right joints and stuff that we need to put on some of this stuff. Right now he's partially filling it in, and then what we're going to do is put some warning tape, some tear tape is what it's called. This is the stuff going over to the garden shed.
So we've got the 45 angles in, we've got all the conduit glued together in the ground, and we're starting to cover it. Tear tape is in place. Most of the work that we're doing now is trying to get the levels of the different conduit and tear tape right and covering it up. And I'm moving that big rock so it's just not sitting on top of the joint of the 3-inch conduit. Last thing I want to do is put a lot of pressure on it and crack it. You know, as I said earlier, there's always seems to be 3 things going on at one time, and you can see that the dump truck is starting to deliver loads to cover up the entrance or the beginning part of that access road that goes over to the other 10 acres. Here I'm catching the final cleanup work. All the tear tape is in place, all the cables are in place, all the conduits in place. Now I couldn't figure out why I was leaving so much dirt near where the electrical is, and the reason he did that was when the electrical company came, they went ahead and moved some of the dirt over to make their pad and everything and to make it level. So he knew what he was doing. Unfortunately, the last video that I did to show all the completed work got lost. Luckily, I took some photos to use for Instagram posting, I still suck with Instagram, and I was swamped and never got them uploaded, but here they are. Here are the culverts at the entrance of the property, all covered over. You can see now there's plenty of room for trucks to make a right-hand turn onto the property and not get stuck. Here you can see where I've rolled up the tear tape nice and neat. Here is the first 50 feet of the access road. And in the background you can see I still have some tear tape to roll up, and I've still got to do something with that internet conduit that's halfway in the ground. The excavator contractor will be coming back after the electrical transformers installed to do just some minor cleanup and move some dirt around. And then here's a good view of the stake representing the water well, and then the 2 stakes we left in the ground. And in the background you can see where the stakes are for the workshop apartment. Here's the close-up of the finished work where the free electrical cables coming out of the ground and the top of the conduit for them to eventually daisy chain electricity from the transformer, the back side of the transformer, their side of the transformer, over to the other 10 acres. They've got the transformer installed and in place. They do have it perfectly over the conduit that I have for the other 10 acres, which is perfect. And they're getting ready to start stripping the cable and hook it up to their side of the transformer. You can't see it in the background, but they're also on the other side hooking up the other end of the cable to the telephone pole electrical cable. So this is the last day I'm in town. I've been packing, cleaning up the inside of the RV, taking things over to the storage shed that I rented, that kind of stuff. And I took this picture to send it to my wife, but I think it shows you how quickly the weather changes there. And this isn't the only time there was snow on the ground. This was probably about the 4th or 5th time, but most of the time what would happen is by noon the sun would come out. It's very, very dry there, and most of it evaporates and a little of it melts into the ground. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really think I got a lot done this trip. The one thing I didn't get done that I will probably do a video on but won't do it part of the series is the heating system for the greenhouse. Parts just didn't show up, and there's no way I could have left it half done. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to come along for the journey, please subscribe. See you on the next video.